Never wonder where that. Oh, is this on? Yeah.
Turn it up.
Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Anyone ever wondered where that expression came from? Pie in the sky when you die. Has anybody ever heard of that expression? No. Who's heard of that expression? Yeah. What does it mean, you know? Well, I looked it up. And it's this title of a song somebody made in 1911, Joe Smith. It was from the early labor movement. You know, early 1900s, it was the time of the robber barons in America, and they were exploiting the workers, and the workers wanted better pay, better conditions. And so this labor activist, kind of a forefather of Pete Seeger, he used to write songs too in the 50s. In fact, he sang the song too. So the singer was making fun of people who just go to church and pray by and by, and you just eat hay, but don't worry because you'll get pie in the sky when you die, right? Just tolerate it, you know, just they're letting themselves be exploited by these capitalists. That's where it comes from. So tonight I titled my talk, Can Krishna Consciousness Actually Help Us Solve Our Problems Here and Now? Or is it just pie in the sky when you die? So let's take a look at this. All right, so yeah, there's so many, I mean, the world is full of problems. It's the place of problems. Because it's the prison house portion of the creation. You can't expect it when you go to a prison, it's going to be a happy place. Ain't nobody happy in prison. So, unless you're trying to correct your consciousness and do what they call a good time. You're taking responsibility for what you did and say you're improving yourself. So here's a big one. I just picked 3 problems that I thought you'd hear a lot of the news. The expression, food insecurity. You heard that expression? Yes. Well, believe it or not, so I looked up this. So today, despite all of our advancements in technology and, different ways of producing food, hundreds of millions worldwide suffer food insecurity, even in the USA. In 1960, there was a fellow named Michael Harrington, a journalist. He wrote a book called The Other America. Anybody ever read that? It's really good. It's all about how, this was the time of JFK came in 1960, and it was Norman Mailer wrote a piece called, for the Atlantic, called Superman Comes to the Supermarket. It's all about how everything's coming up roses, it's super prosperous. So Michael Harrington pushed back on that by writing a book called The Other America, because America is also full of poverty. It's the capital of capitalism, America. And wherever you have capitalism, you're going to have exploitation, and they're going to have the haves and the have-nots, the gap getting wider, the nothing surer. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So when you look at food insecurity globally, so what are the causes of food insecurity? Well, there's global conflicts. Right now, you hear in the news, right? They're trying to get food into Gaza, but they won't let them in. They won't let them in because they're afraid that the trucks are going to come, the Hamas or all these people. And so people are literally starving. Also, because as we've gotten more and more secular and God-less, pretty much throughout the globe, nature is responding. Nature is an energy of Krishna. So whatever's going on in nature, it's a response to behavior. So climate change in the shape of extreme droughts, extreme flooding, that causes famine too. Food waste, this blew my mind. 1/3 of all the food that's produced in the world is wasted. It's thrown out. We don't do that, do we? Hardly. We have a compost, that's right. So even if it does get tossed, it goes back into the soil. And, you know. Okay, so that's how superficially people talk about the causes of food insecurity. And we, right in Tucson, that's why once a month we go to Southside Presbyterian Church and we share our bounty with the unhoused folks. So what are some spiritual causes? Let's go deeper into the causes here. I call this human hubris, thinking that we can conquer nature. This has been going on ever since the Industrial Revolution, the second one, early 19th century, but especially, in the 20th century, it really ramped up, where we're just going to do it much better than nature. Whatever nature's doing, we can do it better. Right? But unfortunately, the bill that's coming in now from that exploitation, there's so much pollution, and the health is actually worse than it was. It's not getting better. And we're ignoring our debts too. We have bills here. We have, you see the lights, you hear the AC going, and we have water, gas, electric. So, but these are all, they've been monetized by governments. But where does all this come from? Where does electricity come from? The sun, right? That's the powerhouse. And the sun, of course, coming from Krishna ultimately. So out of human hubris, false pride, we're just thinking we don't need, these are just, this material world is just here for our enjoyment and exploitation. We don't need to pay any bills. But if you don't pay your bills, then things are going to get restricted. There will be droughts, there will be floods, there will be tornadoes, there will be things that are going to cause suffering. So earth, water, fire, air, space, all these things are gifts of Krishna. He gives to us to try to, act out our fantasies of trying to enjoy the material world, but also of trying to use everything in His service. So, what are some solutions to food insecurity? How am I doing? Okay. Bhagavad Gita. Gita solutions. So just the opposite of the spirit of trying to control and enjoy everything in the material world. Krishna talks in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, called Karma Yoga. Yes, there's karma, but then there's also karma yoga. We can use everything in Krishna's service. So from texts, let's see. From text 3, chapter 3, text 10 through 15. Krishna starts talking about how to act in a sacrificing spirit, making sacred everything we do. I'm just going to read these texts, and you get an idea of what Krishna is talking about here. He says to Arjuna, he says, in the beginning of creation, right? This is primeval, not just some new thing. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods. Behind all these things, behind the air, behind the sun, behind the water, behind the moon, there is personalities. Krishna delegates responsibilities for the heating and lighting and the watering of the prison house of the material world to devas, celestials, to men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, or God, and bless them by saying, be thou happy by this sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So if you live in in the spirit of giving. We talk about giving back, right? But what is it? Ultimately, we have to give back to the divine personalities who are giving it to us. Yes, we have to pay our water bill, etc., but we also have to acknowledge where it's all coming from. And then, the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. I just want a little recognition. Just acknowledge where it's coming from, you know. Don't have to make anything. And by the way, the sacrifice recommended for this age is meditating on sacred sounds. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. I'm getting a little behind. I'm just gonna skip. Here's the big one that Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, would always quote when people would bring up famine, food scarcity, food insecurity. And it's a famous verse, you know, 3:14. Anna bhavanti bhutani parjanyana vasambhavam jagad bhavati parjanyo jagat karma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains. Even if you want to eat meat, the animals they need the grain. Right? So everybody's ultimately dependent on the grain, which are produced from rains. Nothing's going to grow unless it rains. And you can't just tow in icebergs from Alaska or seed the clouds with, you know, crystals or whatever. They tried all these things. But rains are produced by performance of sacrifice. Yes. And sacrifice is born of prescribed duties. Once upon a time in Hyderabad, India, there was a godbrother about Tejas, and Prabhupada came to visit the Hyderabad farm, and Tejas said, Prabhupada, you know, hasn't rained here in so long. Should we just start digging wells? Should we just start digging wells? I mean, there's water under the ground. I said, no, you don't have to dig wells. You just have a big Harinam, big chanting. Just have a huge, just invite everybody from all around to come. And, you know, don't worry if the materialists laugh at you and talk about rain dances. Right. Just have a big Harinam. So Tejas said, oh, okay, nothing else is working. And this sounds cheaper than digging wells anyway, so we'll try it. So they had a big Harinam party, and wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was spotless blue. And then, after about 10 minutes, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this big dark cloud comes moving in. And the place just, the sky opened up and it just rained buckets and buckets and buckets. And Tejas goes, Prabhupada, it worked. Prabhupada, of course it works. Krishna says it works. So just do it. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence, listen to this line, this is the key line, the all-pervading transcendence, God, everywhere, is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. If I want to meet God, then I've got to get it into the spirit of giving instead of taking, of serving instead of being served. Okay, so that's the short answer in these few minutes we have just for food insecurity. How about, have you heard this in the news? This is a big one. Food. Chronic loneliness. Have you heard this? They say there's, doctor, you've heard this? No? Just agree with me.
Social media. That's what I thought of.
There's an epidemic of loneliness, they say. Yes? Are you lonely? No? Well, we're all lonely if we're not. I mean, that's coming. Today, although we're connected more than ever electronically, this is such a big thing. Modern people report feeling profoundly isolated and disconnected from others. Right? Look, I can talk to anybody in the world, but not really. What are the symptoms? This is how they analyze it. What are we going to do about loneliness? Emptiness and alienation. You know that book, Strangers in a Strange Land? Raymond Bradbury, famous sci-fi writer. Right? So, yeah, because actually we are. The material world is not our home. We're spirit, and we're living in a world of matter. So that really resonates with everybody. We all feel like strangers in a strange land. Emptiness, annihilation, and alienation as society has become more polarized. Yes. And here's another symptom, increasing anxiety or depression. Do you treat that? No. What do you say? Okay. You prescribe that. Okay. You're too far ahead. Come on. Increasing anxiety or depression, especially in social situations. You know that. I haven't seen this T-shirt lately, but I used to see this T-shirt when I was living in Hawaii for 10 years. And I was distributing books and Waikiki, and so all these tourists they'd come in, right? And they just, they would save up their whole life to come to Hawaii. And there they are, they're in a frenzy to have fun, saved up their whole life, saved, and they got 2 weeks to have fun. So then you see these people have these T-shirts on. Are we having fun yet? Tell me I'm having fun, please. I'm spending a lot of money here. How about excessively comparing oneself to or seeking validation from others? I went to college in the 1960s, and we had to read a book for sociology called The Lonely Crowd. Anybody ever read this? It was all about how everybody now is other-directed. It used to be tradition-directed. They take their cues from the church or the state, and then it became very inner-directed. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, the rugged individualist. And now, in the global village, the media world, and everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses and watching each other on TV and looking. Everybody's other-directed. So we're always comparing ourselves, and this is all over the news about how, especially teenage girls, they're scrolling and they're trying to compare themselves to what they see, these perfectly sculpted bodies on the screen, which have been, doctored. All right, how about Gita solutions to loneliness? In chapter 9, and you will get a chance later on to read Bhagavad Gita. Here we go. Chapter 9, what's it called?
Confidential knowledge?
Yeah, it's Rajaguhya, most confidential knowledge. So the first two verses, it's really neat. In chapter 9, the first two verses remind us of the non-envious mood of a true seeker and the joy of discovering our long-lost relationship with Krishna. So these two verses, look at this. It's like a real pause here. Arjuna stops and he says, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me." You're not like the people in the material world. You're not trying to compete with me. Because you are never envious of me. You don't resent that I'm God. I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Wow. Talk about an offer that can't refuse, right? So the next verse. This knowledge is the king of education. You know, learn this at Harvard Business School or UA or anywhere. The most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. Wow, that's what I want. Direct perception of the self. By realization. It is the perfection of religion. It's not simply pie in the sky when you die. You can directly get God perception and self-perception. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Okay. Furthermore, in his book, The Nectar of Devotion, we're going to look at an allied literature. This is a beautiful passage. Quote. Prabhupada called this the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. We have this in the bookstore. Yeah. Prabhupada writes that the basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. Yeah. We all want to love and be loved. Now, I just want to read. Oh, maybe it's too late for that. Anyway, the whole idea is that we want to, but we don't know who to love. I think I'm the body, and so I just love my body, and I love people who make my body happy, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But later on in the Gita again, Krishna talks about how in verses 13 and 14 of chapter 9, this is such a chapter, we hear the activities of great souls, not people who are just, trying to scratch our back while we scratch theirs, or tell us how great we are so we can tell them how great they are. But he says, Arjuna, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. Oh, I want to get to know those kind of people. Yeah. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So what do? Always chanting my glories. A lot of great souls in this room right here. Endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. And Prabhupada has kindly created a whole society of great souls. All over the world there's ISKCON centers, restaurants and schools and farms and temples and bird cages. I don't know how many places have bird cages, but are there more places than have fish and fowl? I know we have a unique menagerie here. A whole society, Prabhupada's creating a whole network. Great souls, where we can help each other recover our original Krishna consciousness by chanting, dancing, and hearing about Krishna, so that we'll never have to feel lonely or isolated again. People are just feeling so disconnected, because we don't even know who we are. And one more problem, and of course it's Kali Yuga, the age of coral, so I had to bring up this problem. I call it whack-a-mole wars. What's whack-a-mole? It's come to me, you put out one problem and it seems to just create another or something. Right? That's how it works in the material world. Why does the specter of war always seem to haunt us? Look, when I was going to school, again, well, this is in the 50s, in grade school, we grew up under the threat of nuclear extinction. We had regular drills. I think it's coming back too. These things are coming back. We had to run to our bomb shelters, and we had to hide under our desks or whatever the protocol was in your school. And because the day may come when we're all going to just incinerate in some radioactive cloud. All right. So how do secular folks analyze the cause of wars? It doesn't go very deep. Well, the evolutionary biologists and anthropologists say that our primitive past has hardwired us to aggressively compete for resources, survival of the fittest. So that's made us so aggressive. So we're still like that. And psychologists say fear, groupthink, and perceived threats fueled by propaganda, make people and nations resort to violence to protect their perceived identity. And political scientists point to authoritarian governments, economic inequality, and resource scarcity. You know what that is, water, right? Talk about in Arizona. I think they're having meetings, right? Arizona and Nevada, New Mexico. They're trying to figure out how to manage the ever dwindling, was it Lake Mead, Colorado River. But these are all, it's because the root problem is not being attacked. The root is this: we want to control and enjoy the resources of material nature. We don't want to sacrifice. So what are the Gita solutions for war? All right, who knows the peace formula? Bhoktaram. Bhoktaram yajatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suvidam sarvabhutanam yadvama shantim rishiti. Krishna just lays it out. He calls it, Prabhupada called this the peace formula. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. So it's Krishna, everything's for Krishna. He created it. He expanded himself as so many inconceivable energies to enjoy. That's why we have the desire to enjoy. But we enjoy by cooperating with Krishna, not by trying to set ourselves up as an imitation of Krishna. That's why we never have fun yet, because we're always thinking backwards. Knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods. Yeah. Krishna owns everything. Oh, it's getting late, okay. And the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. The reason we're lonely, the reason there's war, the reason all the food insecurity is because we've deliberately, intentionally disconnected ourselves from Krishna. And yeah, life after life. But he's our best friend, and he stays with us. He never gives up on us. He's right here, right in the heart. He's also in Goloka. He's in every atom. But that doesn't mean he's impersonal. It means this is the Supreme Person too. And his deity form we're going to see soon on the altar. He's our best friend, patiently waiting for us with unconditional love to turn back to him. Conclusion at 6:29. Conclusion, not only, what was the original question? Does Krishna consciousness pie in the sky when you die? That was the question.
No.
Okay. Well, there's more to it than that. Not only does pie await us in the spiritual sky, and there is pie in the sky. There's pie right here. We sell it every day. It awaits us here too, offered to Krishna with love and devotion. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti paritam ashnami prayatatmana. Now this is the right mentality. Krishna says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Love and devotion, bhakti is mentioned twice in that verse. Yes. So in such Krishna consciousness, all the problems of the world can be solved as we prepare our final solution of going back home, back to Godhead. So we enjoy here, or we enjoy here and hereafter. We enjoy here and now. So we do have pie right here, and we have a pie when we leave too. But if we're in the right consciousness. So before the curtains open, I will ask you if you have any questions or comments. Is this Jackal Palm? This lady looked like someone I know. What's your name then? Catherine?
Katie.
Katie. Okay. All right. They look like someone I know. Oh, we're all related, right?
Yes.
Okay. Questions or comments about is Krishna consciousness just pie in the sky? Or can it actually solve the world's problems? It can if we let it. Okay. I guess you know the answers. But you just heard it. Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Hare